Aloha and welcome to the Nisei Veterans Memorial Center's The Nisei Narrative, where we take a more personal and in-depth look into the stories of the Japanese Americans pre, during, and post World War II. Good afternoon. My name is Deidre Teagarden, and I will be your host today. And if you're interested in finding out more information about the Nisei Veterans Memorial Center, we encourage you to check out our website at NVMC.org. We're so glad to have all of you join us today for this very interesting talk with Mr. Leonard Oka, whom I will introduce in just a moment. Before I do, as always, we love to take your questions, so please feel free to type them in as they come to you in that little question and answer box at the bottom left of the screen. We will get to as many as possible. And this is being recorded and will be available on our Nisei Veterans Memorial Center YouTube channel in about a week. So we encourage you to go there and check out other talks you may have missed. And of course, we couldn't bring you any of the programming that we do if it weren't for the generous support of our supporters, which include all of you watching today, as well as our corporate sponsors. You saw their logos as you were getting on the call today. So please help us mahalo them. Without further ado, it gives me great pleasure to introduce our speaker today, a dear friend of the center and a dear friend of many of you on the call today, Mr. Leonard Oka. An insurance agent here on Maui with over 44 years of experience, Leonard Oka is also the president of the Maui Sons and Daughters of the Nisei Veterans. Leonard's passion for the community runs deep. He has served with the Kiwanis Club of Maui, Maui JCs, Japanese Cultural Society of Maui, and he was also the manager for the Lihikai Little League. He serves on various boards and commissions and is the 2011 recipient of the Nihon Bunka Award. He is married and has one son and one granddaughter. But today he is here in his capacity as one of the co-founders of the Nisei Veterans Memorial Center. Please help me welcome Mr. Leonard Oka. Leonard?
Hi, good afternoon, everybody.
Aloha. You know, I know you are a Kiwanian. However, I can't help but think of the Rotary motto of service above self when I think of you and all of the service you do for the community. So perhaps you're also a Rotarian at heart.
Well, just to let you know that my involvement with the JCs is very similar in helping the community. So that was very important in my life.
And I think we can't talk about your life or the Nisei Veterans Memorial Center without talking about your background, your father, and Maui Sons and Daughters of the Nisei Veterans. So if it's okay with you, I'd like to start there today. And I want to start off by talking about your father. Your father had such an impact on your life. Did he share his time in World War II with you? Let's start there. Talk about your father.
Yeah, you know, my dad was very outgoing. So yes, he did share a lot of stories with me and my family. Growing up, we grew up in Kihei, and that was a great experience as it is, not like Kihei of today. We used to go fishing and diving, and my dad loved all those things. So I think that's why he probably wanted to move to Kihei instead of into Dream City. I grew up in that kind of life, very enjoyable, very isolated, but very enjoyable, you know. And till today, I think about Kihei. When my dad, he used to, you know, he was already working at plantations when the bombing of Pearl Harbor occurred at HCNS. He was around 28 years old when he volunteered for the 442nd, you know, so he was one of the original volunteers. But, you know, at 28 years old, that was pretty old. You know, most of the veterans and the men who volunteered would have probably been around 18 to 20 years old. So you wonder why he even volunteered, but that's the type of guy he was. You have to just know his character. real gung-ho, sometimes very hot-headed. I always use the phrase, a typical old Japanese man, and but he just went out and he volunteered. And when he came home and he had to tell his parents, so I know his mother took it very hard, but typical Japanese families, they accept it and just tell their sons to do their best. Okay, but again, he was 28 years old when he went, and he was the eldest son too, so that was even harder for the family. But again, that's the type of man he was, very outspoken, and that's when we talk about growing up in Kihei. Well, maybe later on, what happened is that when my wife gave birth in 1977, you always worry, think about what is the best thing for your children. Okay, and one night I was in bed and couldn't sleep and thinking about, what can I give to my son, Brandon? Okay, and most people would think about, oh, okay, maybe he wants that fire truck, or maybe he wants, a baseball bat when he gets of age, or, maybe you got to save up some money for his college education. So a lot of those things. But in going to Kihei for many, many years, we used to go and take a regular Sunday lunch visit to Kihei. And I enjoyed that because I enjoyed the beach. We had a house right on the beach on Halama Street. So I wanted to have my son enjoy that too. So when he was growing up, we made it a point to go to Kihei and enjoy the Kihei house. But before we went out to play in the beach and stuff, we sat down for lunch. My mom would make lunch for us every Sunday. We would sit at the table. Unlike a lot of families today where somebody's over here watching TV, somebody's outside, somebody's, coming home late. So you just don't eat together and you don't talk story. But I had that opportunity, and my son had the opportunity to get together with my dad and my mom, almost every Sunday at lunch. Okay. And as I mentioned, my dad was very outspoken. He likes to, of course, you get together for lunch, you can't just sit there, you got to talk stories. So he always dominated the whole conversation, but it was great because he used to tell us stories, about the camp days, growing up in, I think it was Spanish B that he grew up in, playing baseball.
Your father was a great baseball player.
Yeah,
right?
I think he was great in the sense that, not as caliber to go to the major leagues, but, when we were small, it was so funny because when we were small, there was two nice sized trophies, and these were from the AJA League, and both were for RBI champ. And we used to play with it and, throw it around and do all kind of banging around and everything. And sad to say, that was my dad's awards for a couple of times winning the RBI champ. So he was a very, very good hitter. In fact, I know for 1 year in high school, he went to McKinley High School, and I believe it was to get a little bit more exposure, in the baseball realm, because baseball leagues, especially AJ and Honolulu, are so strong, So he told us about going to the McKinley High School for 1 year and playing over there also. And they always had those camp leagues and AJA leagues that they played against each other in the camps, as well as played in the statewide championships with the AJA. So in fact, later on, he told me this story about this Fofotu guy, and he remembered my dad from those days. My dad came from Maui, and he was such a good player that this guy remembered him in Honolulu. But
Nice.
baseball was such a big part. But feeling back about the stories, he used to tell stories, and stories and stories. And so, I got to know a lot about my family side too. Most of my grandparents are already passed away. So didn't really get to know them, but he used to tell stories about his family, his brothers, his sisters, his dad, his mom, and everybody else. So I got a lot of history over there. You might not really sink in sometimes, but yet in the long run, you appreciate hearing those stories.
Yeah, and I think we have a photo of one of your family in Kihei. let's see. Let's share that. So you can tell us a little bit about who's in this photo?
Yeah, this is a photo of my whole family with the kids, the grandchildren and everything. And this was just before my parents sold the house. So we thought we would get a family reunion so all the kids can come home and again, enjoy the beach and enjoy each other's company. The thing about it is in my, after high school, most of the kids of my generation would go away if they wanted to go to school. Like the first two oldest was my two sisters, and they went to the mainland. And then came the boys, and we stayed here, but we went to school. But again, most of them off island, even myself. But I came home at least. But I was the only one that came home. So maybe it might be hard to tell everybody one by one, but on the left, you see in the blue shirt is my brother, Stanley. And people say that we look so much alike. In fact, I was telling Deidre there was a story that because people used to say that we look so much alike, one day I just stood in front of the mirror at my house. And it's funny because I just was staring at myself and I transformed to Stanley. It was so unreal. So that was a little scary, in fact. Who else? That's my wife and son in front of Stanley. Yeah, Laurel and Brandon. And my brother-in-law in front of Brandon.
And Brandon's your son in the blue shirt, the blue t-shirt, right?
Yeah, he probably would hate me to show this picture because he was a little overweight at that time. But yeah, and then I have the whole family there. So again, of course, my mom and my dad and my mom in the middle with the Lays. And in front of Brandon is my brother-in-law, Herbert, that he lives on the mainland and married my sister, and my sister stayed in the mainland. So, and then on the right side is myself in the front, and right behind me is my sister, Karen, Herb's wife. And where is Joanne? I know well, Joanne is in the back left, I believe. Hard to describe where, but
right.
her with
Laughing.
her husband, the token Caucasian in her family. Yeah? So Joanne and John Sinton. And like I said, Karen. And where is Mark? Mark is on the right-hand side of my mom in the picture.
Nice.
With the tank top. And on the far right is my half-brother, Michael Otake. So basically, I did all the kids from the family and spouses also.
Nice. Big family. Family is very important to you. One thing that we often hear you say when you give remarks here at the center is that you've got to do your own growing, that no matter how tall your father was. And I wanted to bring that up today because I wanted to talk about what that means. What does that mean to you? You say it a lot.
Yeah. My father went to war. He was an original volunteer with the 442nd, so that speaks for itself in his duty to the country. When he came home, he worked, of course, and raised a family. But he also was very, very active in the community. I remember having PTA meetings at my house, and he was a baseball coach for the Kihei Little League, Kihei Braves for many, many, many years, because he had three boys. So he spent a lot of years coaching the three of us. And he was also in several clubs, like the Maui AJ Veterans, the Maui 442nd Veterans. He was the president for the first 5 years of the 442nd Club. He was also on some commissions. I remember one commission on children and youth, I believe. So he was very active. He was very active with the several campaigns, political campaigns. And it didn't matter which party the candidate was from. In fact, for many years, I thought that my father and we were all Republicans okay, because he supported several Republicans. One notably is Toshi Onzai, and Toshi was a Republican, but he was also a 442 veteran. So my dad's relationship and commitment to that fellow veteran was important. Yeah, but he was very, very active in the community, even with the senior citizens groups when he retired. And when I say, no matter how tall my father was, that's what I mean. Not only the war, but after the war, he did so much. In fact, when I used to see people, older people on the street, they always just say, "Hey, you Heka-san, right?" So they always knew my dad, and I guess I look like him so much. So Oka looks is so strong, so they do that always. But they were very excited that they were meeting me, Heka's son. So that was very had a big influence on my life. That he gave so much. So when I say that you got to do your own growing, I couldn't just rest on my laurels, just go to school, get a degree, go work, and and that's it. I had to keep on giving to the community myself. So for many years, I coached my son's little league team, the League High Pirates. So I was a manager, the head coach or manager for that team also. Very proud that 1 year we actually got tied for the regular season championship. But then they made us play off with the other team, and we lost to them. So they actually got credit with the East Maui championship. But so I coached for several years, and you mentioned about the JCs and other stuff. So, and most of those organizations were community-based, so giving back to the community, and also with boards and commissions with the county and with the state. I was on the campaign for Joseph Suki for many, many years as a chairman. So through him, I got appointed to several boards and commissions also. So I continue to give to the community. So basically what I'm saying is you cannot just be born in this life, get a good education and sit back on your laurels of what you're doing and what your job is. You got to give to the community. And I hope I gave enough of myself to the community in all those years. Not that, I never will have the chance. I would not want the chance to go to war. But other than that, I did what I could. So I hope that I lived up to that reputation of being Clarence Oka's son.
I think you most certainly did. And I think that that's a wonderful segue to the next set of questions that we want to talk a little bit more about the Nisei Veterans Memorial Center. And when did the vision of the Nisei Veterans Memorial Center come to you? And does that kind of go back to what you were saying a little bit earlier about wanting to give something to your son? So what was the impetus for the Nisei Veterans Memorial Center?
Yeah, I wouldn't be able to talk about the Nisei Veterans Memorial Center and my involvement without talking, again about my son and forming, first of all, the Maui Sons and Daughters of the 442nd. Okay, we're called Maui Sons and Daughters of the Nisei Veterans, encompassing the 100 442 MIS and 1399 sons and daughters. But originally, because my father was 442nd, we approached the 442nd Club, the board of directors, and asked them to give us their support to form a Sons and Daughters organization, an auxiliary organization, to tell the story of the 442nd veterans. So that's how we started. And the reason for doing that, again, is because, like I said, about my dad telling all these stories about the war and everything, I realized that instead of giving my son a bicycle or some kind of toy, I thought that just as important, or maybe more important, was giving him the knowledge of his family background. Okay, my dad being a 442 veteran, and my wife's father, Masaru Tanaka, was also a 442nd veteran. So my son had the privilege of being the grandson of two 442 veterans. Okay, so that was very important. And one way I could do that was to make sure that the story doesn't die with me, and that I can create a entity where, we can share this information with my son, all the other sons and daughters of all the other offspring of veterans. And so the 446 Sons and Daughters of 442 was actually, we were installed in 1982, and it was told to me that we were the first Sons and Daughters organization of its kind in the whole United States. Nobody ever thought about doing it. We were the first. And so we got installed in 1982. And very interesting story, because the guest speaker, we had a joint installation with the 442nd, and the guest speaker that year was Sparky Matsunaga. And so we were installed by Sparky. Yeah, so again, maybe that instilled that spark even more, because meeting and getting installed by Sparky was very meaningful to us. So from there, we evolved. We continued to do our Sons and Daughters activities. And some of the things that we did was to start collecting things from the veterans. First of all, we got biographical data forms from all the veterans that we could get. One of the veterans, Earl Tanaka, was instrumental in helping us get that information from the veterans. And then we started collecting collections, the veterans collections, like their uniforms and photo albums, news clippings, medals. And we started collecting all those things. And, the veterans were happy to give it to us, but we realized that, as I always say, we cannot be asking them to take it out of their garages or out of their closets and then give it to us, the sons and daughters. And then Leonard Oka puts it into his garage or his closet. There's no added value to giving it to the sons and daughters if that was the case. So we decided that, we needed to find a place, a repository where we could put this in a safe and professional repository where we can perpetuate or save this collections forever, for the veterans and for future generations. And one interesting story that I would like to mention also is that when we first started our Sons and Daughters, because it was a new club and all new members, although I knew a lot of these guys because they were my classmates or my same age. But we used to have Christmas parties and Easter parties and Halloween and all kinds of stuff. And I remember this one member telling me, because I asked him, well, how come you guys don't come out? You have your two daughters and they could enjoy all these things. He said, Leonard, realize that, I get my own friends and my family. If it was only for parties, I can do it with them. And that really shook me up, but it made me think, what is the purpose of the Sons and Daughters? What did I promise my father and his friends? And we promised that we would perpetuate the story. We would take their collections and perpetuate it for future generations, whether it's their grandchildren or great-grandchildren or whoever it is in the community who wants to know about the veterans or the 442nd. So that was a good experience for me to be shaken up, everybody enjoyed Christmas parties and Halloween and everything else, but that's where we started to really focus on getting these the collection and the story for future generations. In fact, we did some oral histories with the veterans. A lot of them was with cassette tapes back in the early 90s, and a lot of those we only finishing up the transcription and presenting the copies, the bound copies to the families. In fact, in the upcoming fundraiser dinner for the Nisei Veterans, we'll be presenting the last 5 of the veterans' families, because the veterans are not here anymore, sadly. So, but that's the kind of stuff that we started to do. We had collection days, but when we started to collect all these things, we realized this, where are we going to put it? Yeah, do we put it? Do we rent a space, a small little office? I put it in there. Do we make our own building? If we make our own building, how we're going to go about it? And that's where we formed the historical committee of the Maui Sons and Daughters of 442. Again, we still retain the name of the 442 in our name when we first started. And one of the spearheaders of this drive to actually get land and to build a permanent center was Miles Kawasaki. You guys know him as the, owner of Maui Chemical and TJ's. Yeah, but he was one of the early pioneers of this Nisei Veterans Memorial Center, which was eventually named as such. Yeah. But at first, it was just called the Historical Committee of the Maui 442nd. So we went through the formal process of creating it, creating committees. And one of the keys is, Miles is that type, he really thinks big. So he said, yeah, we're going to get the land and we're going to build our own building. Okay, not rent, not borrow. Although we were fortunate that some veterans and their families allowed us to have either low rent or free space to store the collection that we already had. So we appreciate those veterans who did that for us in the meantime. But so the question came up, so where we can get the land from? And the obvious answer was, let's go ask A and B, okay? Because we knew that they were giving for maybe at nominal cost to churches and other nonprofits and stuff. They own pretty much all of Kahului. So somebody said, we'll go ask, no one knew where to ask. And then because a lot of the veterans came from the plantations, yeah, HNS. So we took that to heart and said, okay, let's go ask. Fortunately, at that time, and I give credit to Mayor Hannibal Tavares, who just came from A&B as one of their vice presidents and became mayor of Maui County. And so we mentioned it to him and he said, hey, let me go see what I can do. And next thing I know, I got a call from A&B in Maui office saying that, or maybe it was from Mayor Tavares' office saying, we want to make a meeting and invite you to meet Mr. Robert Pfeiffer. And if you know Robert Pfeiffer, he was at that time president and CEO of A&B. So it's like, oh, okay, we'll get together with him. And so we just thought, okay, just going to be talk. Yeah. But he asked us, I got a few veterans together, some sons and daughters together, and we met at the mayor's office. And they asked us a lot of questions and we told them what it's all about and why the sons and daughters are wanting to do this. And just thought that was it. Yeah. And then later on, we get a call from Garner Ivy, who was the head of the Maui office over here for A&B Properties. He said, hey, Leonard, come by, I'd like to talk story with you. And, oh, okay, what is this all about? Well, A&B is thinking about doing this and giving you guys some land because you guys asked for it. So met with them and, eventually in time, we got the offer. There was 6 acres on Beach Road. And of that 6 acres, they offered us to take any 2 acres of that property that we wanted. And that's where the site is right now today. Yeah. So
what year was this? This was 19...
I would say maybe around 85 is, I believe, when we met with A&B. But it still took a while to get the board's approval. Okay, just because Robert Pfeiffer says you're okay, it doesn't mean it's a go. You have to get the board approval. And then actually transferring the deed to the Maui sons and daughters of the 442 at that time.
I want to share this photo also, which is a little bit later. But talk about forever, there was that sign up there, the future home of the Nisei Veterans Memorial Center. But here it is when it was nice and fresh. Talk to us about this photo.
To tell you the truth, I still have that sign at my house, a little worn and peeling, but it's still there. But this is a good picture because it pretty much shows a representation of all the so-called member organizations that was involved in creating the Nisei Veterans Memorial Center. On the back left, you see Sab Kobayashi. I believe his Japanese name was Keiichi, and he represented the West Maui AGA veterans. They came on a little bit later, but he represented them. Myself, I was an at-large member of the board. Toshio Nancy Endo, he was representing the 442nd at that time because I believe he was the current president. Then next to him on the right hand in the back is Dan Waki. Sadly to say, he just passed away recently, but he represented the Maui AJ veterans. Yeah. And then on the bottom left is Masao Sato, and he used to take care of that site and clean up the weeds and do everything for me over there, bring flowers. And he represented the 100 battalion on Maui. And then Hiroshi, again, was like me, was an at-large member because we already had a representative from the 442. Next to Hiroshi is Patrick Kina. As you can see, probably wearing his postal outfit there. But he was the president of the Maui Sons and Daughters at that time. So he was the official representative of the Maui Sons and Daughters of the 442nd. And to the far right on the front is James Hozaki. James, the MIS on Maui didn't have a formal club, okay? When they came back from the war, for one thing, it was such a secretive mission that they were on. They really didn't get together as an organization, and they were all spread out too, unlike the 442 and the 100. They were spread out all through the South Pacific. So it wasn't like there was a cohesive group, but him and several other members of his group, the original language school that they attended or they went to before being shipped overseas, they used to always get together for Christmas. So that was the only organized MIS group that I could think of. So I invited them to be represented on the Nisei Veterans Memorial Center's board. So that's the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 organizations.
And then I switched photos, and I have a photo of you here with Hiroshi Arazumi. How much later was this one taken? And these are both from Barbara Watanabe, who I know we're going to talk about soon, but thank you, Barbara, for sending these 2 photos in.
Yeah, as you can see, it was quite a while later. The site has taken its toll, and yet we haven't even had the building started yet. There might have been some development behind that berm over there, but Hiroshi and I was just talking about the future plans for the building. Yeah, so probably was right before the beginning of the site improvements. It was interesting, everybody thought it was a continuous rise from Kauli Beach Road up to the houses over there. But right behind that berm, behind us where all the weeds are, there was maybe a 20-foot drop behind that. And I believe A&B had plans to develop that area at one time. But so we went up there and you went over that berm, you saw it was a big drop, and they had to fill that up. So it was perfect because there were a lot of excess sand on the left-hand side of this picture that they could fill in the puka over there. But yeah, I'm not sure what year it is, but pretty far along. We took a very long time to get this project, funded and constructed.
Well, you had a kickoff dinner where Pat Morita was actually the keynote speaker, and I think we have a photo of that as well. Do you want to talk a little bit about that event?
Yeah, actually, okay, that was in 1991. So we had already formed, I think we were working on our bylaws and, articles of incorporation for the Nisei Veterans Memorial Center. And we said, okay, it's about time we start building this building, so we better start raising money. So we had this kickoff dinner in 1991. And I believe the name of the hotel at that time was the Intercontinental Hotel. Okay. And it could seat about 1,000 people. So we pretty much filled up, sold tickets for the whole thing. See on the stage on the left is Charlie Arakaki. He was an MC. Pat Morita was actually a guest MC. So he worked with Charlie on MCing the whole thing. We didn't really have a guest speaker per se, but even though Pat Morita, he was very entertaining. So that was nice. And I told my wife, that looks like her on the front over there presenting a gift to Pat Morita. She kept, no, that's not me, but I know that's her. But so she helped present a small gift to Pat Morita. He actually, spent his own money to come here. We arranged with the Intercontinental for a donation of several rooms for him. And the person that was instrumental in getting Pat here, a good friend of Pat Morita's, was Arnold Hiura. I believe he might have been at the Hawaii Herald at that time, as its editor, or maybe after. But he was good friends with Pat Morita, and he invited him over, and he came over and he helped us out. So that was a great event. And just to give credit for that, Um, David Fukuda, actually put that whole program together. He did such a great job, and again, to get almost 1,000 people there, which is the capacity crowd. I remember Governor, I'm not sure, she probably was Mayor Lingo at that time, and even Patsy Mink attended, with her husband. So that was a very impressive evening.
What an amazing night that must have been.
Oh yeah, very, very impressive. And even had a slideshow by Irvin Yamada. Yeah, photography by Irvin. He put together a slideshow showing the plans and the intentions of the building. So that was very impressive for the audience to see.
So talking about the plans of the building, at when was the vision of an intergenerational center conceptualized? Was that early on or was that later? Because that's how we started, correct?
Yeah, actually the original plans for the Nisei Veterans Memorial Center was to have a community center, where the adult daycare center is today. That big building was supposed to have been a community center. And where the Contra preschool is located, it's supposed to have been nonprofit offices. So our intention was to have nonprofit offices like
Cameron Center.
Cameron Center, yeah, rent out spaces, even if it's at reasonable prices, just so we had steady income coming in. But realized that the community center probably wouldn't make very much money. Okay, I mean, you see the Wailuku Community Center always empty. So, but that's a county, sponsored building, so that's okay. But and luckily, just around that time, and then the educational center was always part of the component of the whole campus. So, but luckily for us, unluckily for the Japanese Cultural Center of Hawaii, they had their building come up and they had some financial problems. They worked through the whole thing, but they had some financial problems and they were thinking that they might have to sell the building. So Sons and Daughters, and Barbara Watanabe was our executive director at that time. And she got wind of us approaching Weinberg Foundation about funding. Yeah, and when Hiroshi and I and Richard Kibi went to see Weinberg, they said, oh, well, we don't give for a community center or for the nonprofit offices. But have you guys ever thought about an intergenerational daycare center on Maui? And we didn't even know what she was talking, Galen Wong was talking about, but it was a great idea, but it wasn't our intention. So we just said, oh, well, if you can't help us, thank you. It's a great, we'll come see you later for something else, maybe. But when we were talking to Barbara, who was already executive director, we brought that up. And that was not with the intention that we're going to go back to Weinberg and ask for the money because they brought it up. It's just that she said, that's such a great idea to have an intergenerational daycare center. And I think that was like around 2003, I believe, when Barbara was the executive director, and we came up with this new concept of intergenerational daycare center. And of course, the museum and the archival center would always still be in there, so that wasn't going to change. But the primary use of the bigger buildings, and that would provide us with steady income. Yeah, because what we would do is, and we did contract eventually with Maui Adult Daycare Center, who is still occupying that space, the bigger space. And Contra Preschool was actually formed by the Nisei Veterans Memorial Center as a separate entity to occupy the space for the preschool. And together they would create the intergenerational daycare program so that the clients from each program would get together, and it was a great concept where the kids would meet up with their grandmas and tutus, every day. It wouldn't be an all-day, completely intergenerational program, but they would meet at a certain time every day, talk story, play games together, make puzzles, whatever activities the Contra Preschool and Maui Adult Daycare Center had for them. So, and I'll tell you, I tell people that I remember when the intergenerational first opened, I always used to visit the site. So I went one day, and just so happened they were having that hour or so of time that the grandpas and grandmas and kids, the preschoolers, were just about to meet each other, and the preschoolers were walking into the adult daycare center. And I was just filled with joy because to see the seniors just smiling, and just looking forward to that time they were going to spend with the preschoolers. That was so meaningful to me. So I knew it was a good concept, and we had a lot of grief about the change from the community center, where there would be more time that the veterans could use it for themselves, maybe even to drink coffee and stuff like that. But that was never our intention. But so we had grief when we changed it to this intergenerational daycare where we had tenants inside. But at that time, me and Barbara stood by that and felt, and of course the board had to approve everything, but we stood by that decision. And today we know that that was the right decision to make that change at that time. Yeah, and that's why we're still successful financially and operation-wise.
It's a nice partnership, and definitely up through COVID. Like you said, it's just so inspiring to go upstairs and see the grandparents and the kupuna from Maui Adult Daycare Center interacting with the children from Concha Preschool. It's quite special. But all this time, you still had in mind to build what we have downstairs now, which is the exhibit hall and the extensive in the archival room, and be able to bring all of those archive items over here. And that was a little bit later.
Yeah, well, the problem is when we started this whole fundraising thing, it wasn't the best in times, for the economy and everything. In fact, when we were planning this whole thing, we were saying, yeah, these Japanese corporations, they're coming in Hawaii and they're just giving away money to everybody, because they want the support of the community. So our intention was to ask them for some money too. But just at that time, things were just drying out for the Japanese economy over here in Hawaii, so that fell through the cracks. And so it made it a little bit harder to raise money just from the local, community and businesses and everything else. We never approached the federal government, although everybody thought it was an obvious choice because Danny Noe and Sparky was in there, and they could get us some money, but that was never our choice to do that. So it was pretty much all local, statewide, and we depended heavily on the government, the state and the county, to come through, and they did, because again, the people in the state and county knew the history of the Nisei veterans, not only during war, but when they came back. So they were very, very supportive, and a lot of the funding came from government funding. But again, the local businesses and the individuals really came through too. I really appreciate their support, so. But yeah, in time, things change, and you just got to make the decisions and move forward.
Well, I also want to just acknowledge the fact that, I think what you and the other visionaries were able to create was, we're the only center like we are within the state, and you were able to bring all the different groups, the 100th, the 442nd, MIS, you were able to bring them all together to come up with this singular idea. And I think there's a lot to be said about that. Changing the name from Sons and Daughters of the 442nd to the Sons and Daughters of Nisei Veterans. But can you talk a little bit more about that? Because that's a pretty major thing that everyone was able to come together for this center.
I tell people that on Maui, we were very fortunate. Remember at that time, back in the 80s and 90s, there was only 4 high schools on Maui, okay? St. Anthony, Maui High School, and I guess Maui High School, Bowen High School. I believe there might have been Hana too. But so, pretty much the people that I knew, and these were all the baby boomers coming, that our fathers all came back in the late 40s, and came back, made their life, got jobs, and made kids. Okay, and that's all my classmates and my sister's classmates and my brother's classmates. So we're all friends. It was easy to get together. The only problem was that most of my friends, these sons and daughters of veterans, didn't know anything about their fathers' experiences in the Second World War. So they were not as enthused about this whole thing like I was, because of what my father used to tell me about his experiences. So, it was something, a learning experience for a lot of the sons and daughters. But, whether we were from of course, we started with the 442, the 442 veterans got their kids to come out and join this organization, the Maui Sons and Daughters. But in time, we had some others join us from the 100 Battalion, sons and daughters. And little by little, we picked up more and more of them. And, it just grew in that sense. We weren't going to be excluding anybody just because, oh, you're a son of a 100 veteran, so we don't want you. It doesn't work that way. A lot of these guys were my friends and classmates, so we were happy to accept them into our sons and daughters group. The veterans themselves accepted that, even them, there was divisions about 100 and 442 and, a long story and stuff like that, but most of them were reasonable, and they realized that if these 100 veterans knew that if their sons or daughters wanted to join an organization like this, they would be very, very supportive. So we had, and slowly grew. I mean, at one time, I think maybe at least 1/3 of our sons and daughters members were 100 veterans, 100 sons and daughters. So, and we just moved forward and continued to grow, collect stuff from the 100, the 442. And, we didn't even know what an MIS veteran was about, or 1399 at that time, much less even the 442 we didn't know too much about the 100 Battalion. So in time we learned, and we found out that had these other groups, Japanese American soldiers in World War II, the MIS, Military Intelligence Service, and the 1399, that, they have the same story that our fathers had. And so we should include them too. So, we did get a few MIS sons and daughters. We have a very few 1399 members, but very active. So we just grew like that. And again, being a small island, compared to Honolulu, it made more sense for us to get together, work together. Okay, and that's why we did that, So when people say, well, you guys were ahead of your time in getting the 4 veterans groups together to work together. I mean, we made an effort to do it, but it was much easier because with such a small group of people to volunteer, we needed each other, and we had a common goal. I know that in Honolulu, they have different 100, 442 MIS groups, and most notably the 100 and the 442. And again, they were happy, they were satisfied. They had so many people in Honolulu that they could create their own club and, just stick together. 100, 442. In fact, each of those organizations had their own clubhouses and apartment buildings. So they could continue like that all these years while the sons and daughters in Maui, not that we were forced to, but we were, able to work together with other groups.
Right. And I want to show this photograph. Melanie took this on the day of our opening in 2013. So this was downstairs. This was the education center and the archive. And can you share a little bit about this photo?
Yeah, I mean, this was an exciting day because, I always told people we had to start with the intergenerational daycare center first, simply because money was tight and we needed to guarantee when we make a building that there's income from it. There is not too much money or income. You can charge admission to the education center, but not much income in there. So people didn't understand why we had to do the adult daycare center and the preschool first, but it was just financial decision to do that first. But ultimately, the cornerstone of the whole campus, as I'll call it, the Nisei Veterans Memorial Center campus, has always been the educational center. Okay, and when this thing was completed, we got the funding, we completed it. It was a very special day. For one thing, it ended many years of my needing to go to planning meetings at the county and burial council meetings and fundraising and everything else. This was the culmination of the whole project at the Nisei Veterans Memorial Center. But for all these veterans over here, we're happy that they came out that day because, again, I don't think they really understood the concept of preserving their story. Of course, they're all proud. They have a story. We've asked them for, oral histories and their collections and stuff like that. But when they walked in that door, and even their wives, when they walked in the door that first day at this, grand opening, I think they were just amazed at what they saw because we already had an exhibit up. It was a hodgepodge exhibit, but they were very impressed at what they saw in the building. And I think then they realized, okay, that's the primary purpose of the Nisei Veterans Memorial Center. Okay, we're not in the business of running an adult daycare center. I mean, intergenerational daycare center. Yeah, but the educational center is the sons and daughters mission that we started with, was the mission of the Nisei Veterans Memorial Center in building all these buildings. So when it was completed and the veterans and their families saw what it was all about, I think they had a better appreciation also.
And now we are in the process of enclosing the Stanley Izumigawa Pavilion, making it the Stanley Izumigawa Resource Center, where it will allow us to double our space for exhibits, for workshops, for monthly movie matinees put on by Leonard Oka of the Maui Sons and Daughters. And research, Melanie gets so many requests for research from across Hawaii, the nation, and even Japan. So it's going to allow us to double everything we do. How do you feel about that? What do you were at the groundbreaking a few months ago in September, actually just about a month ago. How does it make you feel? How do you think your father would feel about it?
My father would be very happy and very proud that I was part of this whole project. Even myself, I really maybe didn't see the whole picture, to be honest. Okay, we were so busy for so many years collecting. The Sons and Daughters was good at collecting. Like I said, we did oral histories on our own. We did oral histories in partnership with the Go for Broke National Educational Foundation. We had collection days. We got uniforms and medals and documents and photos. So we were good at collecting. And of course, one of the things about the Nisei Veterans Memorial Center Education Center and its archives was to have a repository to put all this collection in there. But that's all the collecting. And it's important, that we did all those things because we did most of these things when most of the veterans were still alive. Okay, so that's why we have quite a bit of a collection of oral histories from many of our veterans. We have a lot of collections that they donated to us all those years. But maybe I lost sight of the fact that the purpose isn't only to collect. Yeah, I mean, it's good to collect because otherwise you might lose it. Yeah, so you do it when you can. But what do you do with the collection? Okay, and we had to share it. Yeah, and so now Deidre, Melanie, and other executive directors have been good about trying to share this information, with the public. And a lot of people have come in and viewed our collections, done some doing research and everything else. So that was good. But I think now with the enclosure of the pavilion and making better use of it, it was supposed to have been used for people to have parties and get-togethers and stuff, but never was used for that. It was only collecting dust in there. So I'm very happy that the Nisei Veterans Memorial Center board has decided to raise the money and to enclose the pavilion and to expand the resource aspect of the collection. Okay, because if you're not going to share it, doesn't make sense. Okay, it's just going to be sitting in our archives or our closet and just wither away. Okay, so like we told the veterans, you need to pass it on, and we can share it for you, and anybody who wants to see it will have access to it. So with the resource center expansion now, we can do that. So I'm very, very happy with what you guys are doing over there. I understand that the education center is not that big, so a lot of people don't see the archival center in the back room. That's pretty much private to the staff. Okay, it's 24/7 air conditioned and dehumidifier, and that's why we can keep it safe in there. But again, we have very little exhibit space. We try to do our best in putting on exhibits on a regular basis throughout the year, always changing it, filling in space for our monthly movie matinee and other workshops that DJ and Melanie come up with. So it's great, but even like the monthly movie matinee, I think maximum we could fit in there was like, maybe, I think we had 40 at the most, just squeezing them in, So we were outgrowing the space over there. And so that's why to have this additional space upstairs is great. And if the veterans were impressed to see what we had collected and where we were storing it in this temperature controlled environment, they would be even more impressed and more happy that Nisei Veterans Memorial Center is now emphasizing the resource part of it. That people can do research. They can come and they can look. We can have other workshops. I told Idra already that she needs to reserve a small room in there upstairs so we can do interviews, oral history. And the veterans are not here already, but the sons and daughters are here. I would love to tell their stories, on why, like Gary Nakama, Floyd Nagoshi, to mention a few who've been with me for so many years from the very beginning. Why are you guys still here? Leonard isn't the easiest person to work with. Why are you guys still here? So they have their own story to tell, their own legacy that they want to pass on, and that's important. And for me, I mentioned the word legacy. I think this culminates the whole thing that I've worked for, starting the Sons and Daughters, working together with others on the creation of the Nisei Veterans Memorial Center campus, and now actually taking the collection and making sure that it's there for anybody and everybody. It doesn't have to be Japanese or Japanese American or just a family of the veterans. For anybody in the community who is interested in the story of the Nisei veterans. So I can see that, once this research center is finished and you guys can expand your space. So I want to thank you and Melanie and all your volunteers for taking that extra step.
We thank you and the sons and daughters and everybody who is so helpful along the way. I wonder if you could tell me that story that you shared with me about your granddaughter, and that's Granddad's baby. Can you talk about that? It was for our groundbreaking that we had in September, and we invited Zenshin Daiko to come and play music. And your granddaughter is a member of Zenshin Daiko, but the junior team. However, she and her friends were invited to play music. I will turn the story over to you now.
Yeah, in the Zenshin Daiko group, there is like my daughter, she's only 10 years old, so still one of the beginner groups. Normally when Sechen Daiko goes and take their performances to the community, a lot of times they focus the performance on the older group, okay? And naturally because they're better performers, but you know, before they leave for college and stuff, give them exposure. So when I think Melanie must have asked Tony at Senjin Daiko, can you guys perform at our groundbreaking ceremony? And by the way, Tony, can you get Mirahi Oka and I believe Orcasas had maybe 2 grandchildren that were in there, and then as well as what was that?
Kirk Kurokawa.
Kurokawa's 2 kids, boy and girl, all around my daughter's age, you know. So usually they wouldn't be performing at these events, but special requests, so they came. So Mirahi, knowing that my granddaughter, knowing that you know, normally it's the older kids that we be performing, she asked my son Brandon, or her dad, how come we performing? You know, usually it's just the older kids. So Brandon answered back, well, after all, that's Grandpa's baby. And Mirahi must have had that puzzled look, and she asked my son, Dad, I thought you were Grandpa's baby. So I thought that was so cute that she did, you know, she didn't quite understand, but I was so proud to see her that day performing, you know, at our event. So
It was really fantastic. I don't think there's a better way to start to gently end our conversation, but with that story. But I do like to ask you, you know, what is the lesson that the Nisei soldiers want us to learn from all the sacrifices that they made?
it's interesting, you know, because when we listen to or read transcripts of the oral histories that a lot of these veterans did, you know, a lot of them said, you know, oh, we wish that there's no more wars, that there's peace and, you know, brother throughout all the nations in the world, that everybody got along. Why should we have to fight? So, you know, that kind of answers that we hope that our story will teach people that, you know, we don't need war anymore. But it is nice to say, but I think in reality, we all know that there's always going to be wars, you know, throughout the world, someplace. And America is always going to be involved someplace also. But I think that it's a great thought that they have, you know, because they lived through it, you know, and many of their friends died through it. You know, so they don't want to have that for anybody else. They don't want it for their children. They don't want it for their grandchildren or great grandchildren. Yeah. So to say that, I think it's truly what they wanted, you know, or don't want, yeah, to have wars continuing. But I think basically what we can hope is that from these experiences, you know, especially like as an example for the Japanese on the West Coast who were, you know, interned in these relocation camps. Yeah. Hopefully there is no incident like that anymore, just because of the color of your skin, you know, your race, and be interned in mass like that. You know, so that kind of stuff is realistic, that we can hope that it's not going to be like that. You know, there might be some degree of it, but that was a very, very big black guy in American history. And hopefully people will remember it. Yeah. And by the veterans telling their stories, because the Go For Broke has a lot of stories from mainland veterans and who had to live through that. They volunteered from relocation camps, a lot of them. Their families had to live through all that. So, you know, in their stories and some of the stories of our veterans in Hawaii, hopefully people realize that, wow, was it that bad? And you ask a lot of people today, they don't even know about the relocation. You know, They don't even know about the 442 and the 100 and what they did, So it's sad, and you think that history shouldn't repeat itself, but people have short memories. So we, as the Nisei Veterans Memorial Center, need to keep on telling the story, and tell it to different people, So I think that's all we need to do. Just keep on telling. Hopefully, it sinks in.
I'm going to come back to you for some closing remarks. I want to thank everybody for joining us today for a very special Nisei Narrative. Can't thank you, Leonard, enough for being with us this afternoon and your lifetime dedication and commitment and service, not only to the Nisei Veterans Memorial Center and the Nisei Veterans Legacy, but for all that you do in the community. We want to remind you all that we will be hosting our annual dinner via Zoom again this year, November 13th. If you are interested in signing up for the dinner or some delicious dinner packages, meal packages that we have courtesy of TJ's and Umi's restaurant in Wailuku, just give us a holler at the center or visit our website at nvmc.org. We also want to remind you that our upcoming afternoon with the author in November is going to be Marilyn Chase, and she's going to be talking about her book, Everything She Touched, the story of Ruth Asawa. But again, Leonard, I'm going to come back to you for some closing remarks, whatever you wish them to be.
Maybe I got to give a shout out to a lot of people that has been with me throughout this whole journey. I wanted to mention one thing too, on this fundraising for the resource center, for the finishing costs. DJ asked me what the sons and daughters could do, and I had asked several of my board members, what can we do? And so, we accumulated quite a bit of funds throughout the years for historical preservation and scholarships, and this was all through the Chrysanthemum Festival that we currently run. So someone said, "Oh, let's go donate an amount and ask our members to match it." So we agreed on 25,000 as our donation from our club. So now we have to ask our members to individually try to match that 25,000. I just looked at my figures today, my records, and we collected from our members an additional $44,200 to today. I just got another check in the mail today, in fact. So the total commitment with the club's initial 25,000 is the sons and daughters and its membership individually is contributing almost 70,000 to the resource center, specifically for the resource center. So a big shout out to the members of the sons and daughters.
Very big shout out.
Yeah, and then along with that, I mentioned Gary and Floyd, Gary Nakama and Floyd Nagoshi. They've been with me for so many years. So I get the recognition every time. Maybe because I'm willing to be the perpetual president of the Sons and Daughters for so many years. So I guess I'm the spokesman, but so many others have helped me throughout the years. And so Gary and Floyd has been from the beginning. We have others like Jill Izumigawa Ross. Her dad is Stanley Izumigawa, who the pavilion is named after. Janice, Toyama, Tepisaji, Wendy. Mark Mizuno came along later. He's son of a 1399 veteran, but very, very, very active and very helpful, always volunteering along with his wife, Eloisa. So when I recognized them, Eric Yamashigi, David Fukuda. Everybody was so sad at Nisei Veterans Memorial Center when Dave said that he was going to move to California because he did so much. I mean, anything and everything Dave would do. And he was so knowledgeable about the Nisei veteran history. So he still contributes, I believe, to the Okage-sama Day in historical stories and stuff. And I know he's listening, so I don't know how the Dodgers did today, Dave, but didn't sound like it was too good. But he's in California right now. Another one I wanted to give a big shout out to, who continues to serve us, is Roy Tanaka. He's a son of Earl Tanaka, 522 veteran. And when his dad, Earl, was at the Maui News, and logically, he was in charge of putting together the Okage-sama Day since 1991, I think was the first one. And I think maybe around 7 or 8 years he did it before he got sick and he passed away. And Roy Tanaka, who also worked at the Maui News, dedicated his many, many years, I think maybe 14, 15 years, to continue the, putting together the editing and publishing of the Okage-sama Day after his dad passed away, in honor of his dad. So, and even him, he moved to, he's in Washington right now, Washington State, but he moved to the mainland, but he continues to help the sons and daughters. Every time I need something to be edited, if I have to print or, make a speech or something, he would always help me out. The other thing that he has been instrumental is the cassette oral histories that we did back in the early to mid 90s. We're still working on it, but he did a lot of the transcription for us, even from long distance, and even till today, he's still helping us on that project. So shout out to Roy on that, and many, many others. But on the Nisei Veterans side, especially would like to thank Hiroshi Arizumi, because we started we had the kickoff of the Nisei Veterans Memorial Center in '91, and in February of that year is when my dad passed away. Okay, so I knew I shouldn't have brought it up, but so my dad would have been the person that I could always lean on. He always supported me, especially if it was pertaining to the sons and daughters and the veterans organizations. But he left us earlier that year. But Hiroshi did a very good job in filling that spot for me, like a father figure. Always there whenever I needed him. He would always be there. He had that kind of attitude, like, yeah, why not? Yeah, we should do this, we should do that. Always positive. And sometimes in this whole 30 years or so of this Nisei Veterans Memorial Center, I needed that. Yeah. And he was always the forefront of the Nisei Veterans Memorial Center, the elder spokesman and most respected person in the Nisei community for Nisei Veterans Memorial Center. But I needed his support, and he was always there. So thank you to Hiroshi. And of course, we had other presidents like Brian Moto and Dan Waki, and past directors, Barbara Watanabe, Bobby Hill, Gail Riggs. And then, of course, now we have a great director in Deidre with her archivist, Melanie. So all of these people, along with all the board members, Wayne Maeda he was stuck with me as being the treasurer for so many things, including the Nisei Veterans Memorial Center and the Chrysanthemum Festival for so many years. So when I think back and I think of all these guys, I really, really appreciate all their help.
Well, I think the community really, really appreciates you, and of all of the values that we talk about so often, I think the idea of Okage-sama de, because of you, we are, is so apt for today's talk, and for all that you and all of those people that you mentioned have given and continue to give. So thank you, Leonard. Thank you for perpetuating the legacy and for allowing us to do what we do here. So mahalo. Thank you, everybody, again for joining us today. We hope you join us for future talks. Please check out our YouTube channel for talks you may have missed. Until next time, we bid you a warm aloha and ahui ho. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Deidre.